Welcome to your channeled messages, energy report, and card reading for the month of December. I am Jenny, your humble guide, and as you can hear, my voice is a little altered this time. I want to say thank you to those of you who have been with me from the beginning of doing these readings. This completes a full year of channel messages. I think I actually started in November of last year, but it's a full, all of 2022, I have done these videos faithfully, and there's about, I think, a good 40 of you who stick around and watch every single one, and I am so grateful for our connection and for you tuning in to watch this, and I'm just really want to give my gratitude to you. As you can see, I'm getting over a cold, so hopefully it doesn't detract from me reading the messages. If you've never if you've never seen one of these videos before, what I do is I open the Akashic Records for the collective. I'm going to read what the messages were, then we'll talk about the messages, and at the end is a card reading, which is going to be really fun. I'm using lots of different decks, so I hope you enjoy this. I think it's best to hear the messages through earbuds or headphones with your eyes closed so you can get your own initial visuals and reactions, so it should be fun. As it darkens and the weather cools, you are naturally invited into the cave of your heart. Mother Earth starts to sleep. She looks dormant and dead in places, but you know it's not true. Trees sleep and dream of spring. Animals sleep cuddled together. Plants seem to die, only to resurrect in the spring. Without death, there is no rebirth. We need regeneration, birth, and newness. Death is change. Death brings the light. We only appreciate the light because of the darkness. Now is the time to look at your own darkness and invite it in. Bring your shadow in like a good friend. Sit with it, have tea with it, journal with it, talk to your shadow. Let her merge with you being heart, mind, body, and soul. Let her merge with you. Let her speak her fears. Let her speak whatever is hurting her, causing her sorrow or pain. Let it all come out and be purged into the light. Then together you can whisper your dreams and ideas and set goals for the new year. That was a loud car, sorry about that. It is not healthy to be in the light all the time. To be love and light, to just be one season, to burn yourself out, to burn at both ends, burn down, down, down like a candle. It is important to rest. It is in rest that we do our best thinking, dreaming, and creating. Rest is not lazy. Rest is an important part of the cycle. Rest is where things are born. Then later they are created, made manifest. New ideas cannot be born without rest. How can you rest? What are you afraid of when you rest? People go from one thing from the next, busy, on their phones or with a TV or computer, which are all lights, noise, static. What would it be like to have silence and darkness? People are afraid of what comes up in the silence and darkness. But what comes up are thoughts and feelings that are pushed away by busyness. When you don't investigate and let these thoughts and feelings surface, when you don't give them space and time in your life, they become shadow. They become pains in the body. They become mental illness and physical illness. This is why people have breakdowns. It is safe or smart or wise. It is not safe or smart or wise to do. That is masculine energy. And everyone needs a balance of masculine and feminine energies. Everyone needs to cycle and rest. Everyone needs to rest, receive, listen, feel, be. The opposite of doing is being. That is the whole point of a mindfulness path, to be. So as you go into winter, start thinking about how you can be instead of what you can do. What does it mean for you to be? How can you build and rest? And what are you willing to receive? The darkness is your friend. She is the mother. She is the womb. She is where creation lies. All I can say is, wow, this was one of the more, I would say, poetic messages. I'm going to put the whole thing in the YouTube description. I'm also going to link a video to what is shadow work and a video about masculine and feminine energy, because all of that came up in here and I want you to be able to dive into that if you want to. This one thing that stands out to me right away is you're naturally invited into the cave of your heart. That's the name of my poetry book, for those of you who know about that. And that idea comes from Buddhism, where it's like deep down into your very depths, you have a cave in your heart. And it's also talked about in other religions and spirituality. So it's not unique to me. I didn't make it up. But it's the idea that it's the dark place in the heart. The place that isn't all love and light, like the messages talk about. It's the place where one has to dive in order to heal themselves. But it's not a happy place, right? If you think about Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey, and if you're not familiar with him, I adore Joseph Campbell, so definitely look up the hero's journey after this. But most of the stories we watch follow the hero's journey, right? Dorothy, I'll use the Wizard of Oz as an example. So at some point, she is having to face her darkness. She's trapped in the tower of the Wicked Witch, and seeing Auntie Em in the crystal ball, knowing that Auntie Em is suffering because Dorothy has left and gone on this adventure. That's like guilt and shadow and, being the good girl. All of that kind of people-pleasing stuff is coming up for her, and she has to fight through it in order to go home. So she has to face the cave of her heart, dive into it and face it, right? And in movies, it's always such a short journey. If only real life was like that. But in reality, we have to dive into the cave of our heart often. And winter is naturally the time to do that. I've talked about that before on here, and I talk about it in my class on Udemy too, about naturally as the light recedes, our ancestors were going to become more introspective and reflective. And that hasn't left, even though Christmas and New Year's and the holidays have made this time very busy for a lot of us and have made it so that we have to be out maybe more, visiting with people more than we might want to. It's like we're being encouraged to this message to find the balance. So nowhere in here does it say don't go to parties and have fun and all of that, but it's saying to take time to tap into yourself. One of my favorite things to do is we're lucky enough to have a fireplace, and I like to just kind of sit there sometimes at night before everyone goes to, when everyone's in bed already, and I just can sit and like gaze at the fire and just reflect and what's coming up for me. I also write in a journal every morning. I'm just kind of, seeing what comes out. And sometimes I have a prompt, sometimes I don't. But those two little things, journaling and just sitting and doing nothing is something we lack in this society, because you can always be busy on your phone with a computer. It talks about that, the light from the devices and the static and the noise. You got to take that all away sometimes and sit there and, enjoy the silence and the darkness and like let things come through. Because when we're just constantly distracted, our truths cannot surface. And this is what happens to people often, around this time of year. People have thoughts or feelings of suicide. There are people who get sick, maybe sick through the whole holiday season. And that's because things are surfacing and it's not being handled correctly. I, for instance, did not rest. I was like a force to behold recently before Thanksgiving, just cleaning and going and doing and like not building in the rest. And that's why I got sick. And I get that. I surrender to that. I accept it. But if you can build in the rest and the silence preemptively, like you're going to start December with however you want to do it. Is it every day? You're going to sit for maybe 5 minutes once everybody's in bed and just reflect. Are you going to start your morning that way? Are you going to do it on the drive home? No music, nothing, just driving and listening and just thinking while you're driving? Or is it quiet time while you do the dishes? How are you going to just build in these little moments? I would call them meditative moments, and just letting the thoughts come. When I was working full-time as a teacher, and my son was like a toddler. He's a talker. And I remember just like once he'd go to sleep, I would have all these thoughts come in, is because there was no time for those thoughts to come in at any point during the day. Being a teacher all day and having kids talk all day and then having a son who's very talkative, it was like there was no room for my brain to have thoughts. And that's when we get derailed off of our mindfulness path or our spiritual path. So I like this whole part too in the reading, in the channel message about like inviting your shadow in. I got this visual of like someone in a little winter cabin with a hearth and opening the door, and like this shadow woman comes in and sits on the couch with her, and they share tea and they chat. You know, like you could even do that as a meditation where you just sit and you just say, shadow, come and speak to me. And like, imagine what would your shadow look like? You know, is it a person? Is it a being? Does it have form? And what would they say to you? You know, what would they bring up to you? And the more we do shadow work, the less of a hold the shadow has on us, and it diminishes. And that's really key. Like, I always say that the spiritual journey is a spiral, right? And we keep circling back and revisiting similar things, and we heal them better each time. And that's definitely the case with shadow work. I first began my work with shadow work in my 20s, and I used tarot cards for that, and that was kind of my first dive into Jung. I was taking psychology classes, and just all kind of went together. But ever since then, I have really continued to work on that, because the shadow changes as your role in life changes. You know, as someone in their 20s, I was not a mother or a wife or anything. So it was like that all those roles change, and then the shadow changes with your role, with your time frame, and everything. And then there's a whole part about rest is not lazy, and that rest is an important part of the cycle, and that's how we rest and we dream. And it makes me think of Lizard in certain indigenous cultures. He's referred to as the dreamer, and that's his medicine, is to offer rest and dream. And it's because lizards are often found like sleeping in the sunshine or sleeping in crevices for winter. They hibernate. And so it's this idea that we need that time, that you need incubation time. I know that for me, I'm a creative person. I consider myself a creator, and I do create a lot of things, but I take a lot of rest. Like you can't just, like it says, burn the candle at both ends. You just can't constantly produce, whether that's work, creations, interactions, whatever. You just need rest all the time. And it's very frowned upon in our society, because we have had too much masculine energy. And I'm not saying anything against people who are men or identify as men at all. But our society has been, because of the Abrahamic religions and the lack of feminine divinity, has been overdone over time to just be all about doing and being in the masculine energy. And there's a time and a place for that, but the rest and the receiving is so important too, especially this time of year when Mother Earth is resting. That's your cue to do the same. And then talks about the darkness is your friend. She is the mother. She is the womb. She is where creation lies. I love that so much. I might get turned into a poem. So if you see it later, you'll know where it came from. But yeah, that's, to me, true. I've been seeing, it's interesting for me in a lot of my own readings and meditations, I've been having a lot of phoenix energy. So this idea of the phoenix who lives forever, but is constantly aging, burning, and being reborn. And so recently I was guided to see that I was in a burning stage, which was a lot of heavy shadows came up for me in October and November. I mean, the ego came in strong with a vengeance. I was kind of derailed on some spiritual paths, and it was just like, it was shocking to me. I'm like, how did this happen? All this stuff came up. And then I think that was the burning. And then recently I was told that I was guided to see in a meditation, told and channeled that I'm sick as part of the gestation. Like the burning is over and now it's the incubation, the gestation before I'm reborn. And what's really interesting about that to me is I'm a Taurus sun, and all of these eclipses have been in Taurus. And that basically signifies that I'm at the end of a 10-year cycle, about to begin a new one. And it makes perfect sense to me because the last few years in particular have been very intense. There's been a lot of change and a lot of transmutation and burning and, you know, all of these things. It's been an intense time for me. And then suddenly, just recently, I've had this peace wash over me. And I've had moments like this. I actually felt like this right before 2020. And I think a lot of us were shaken up by that time and maybe even started a spiritual path because of it. But I recently just have had this kind of peace and calm wash over me and acceptance. And for me, I'm a manifester by nature. I'm a change maker. I'm an idealist. But for me to just be content and rest and be like going with the flow is new. And it's amazing. I wake up happier. I'm just in a better place. And I hope that's the same for a lot of you. And I'd like to hear from you about that. But I feel like I'm ending this year. It does feel like the end of a cycle. It does feel like I'm going into the next year lighter and happier and more free. And so before we go on to the reading, I just want to invite you. This is something I do personally at the end of every December before we go into New Year's, is I reflect on, I think I'm going to sneeze. Hang on. Thank you for your patience. But at the end of December, I always come up with some journal questions that I reflect on. And then I come up with goals, like tangible goals for the year. And then another thing I do is I write down all my wins for the year. And I think that's really important. Like, I don't reflect on like the goals I didn't accomplish or the things that didn't work out. Instead, I try to end the year on some deep dives into my life. I end the year with reflecting on the things that, my wins and things that went well. And then I try to pick 1 to 5 words that I want the next year to like be the theme of. And so, you know, it could be like magic or miracles, joy, freedom, whatever. But I encourage you to do the same. I think it's a really good exercise to like give yourself, this is what I want for 2023. I want like this word. This is what I want, the theme. I'm going to look back and that's what I want it to encompass. And just kind of focusing on that theme and decorating your altar with that theme, journaling on that theme, just kind of trying to bring it into reality. And then visualizing it. There's really, like I said, sitting in silence and doing nothing and daydreaming is so good for you. So sitting there and just kind of closing your eyes and like in imagining, you know, 2023, what magic do I want to happen, if that's your word? And you just imagine the magical things that are going to happen in your life. And then keep doing that, keep daydreaming that, because we dream things into reality, right? And we're encouraged in this reading to dream. And then the other thing I do is, if you read cards, I like to give myself an outlook for the next year. So I have different methods, I have different spreads. I kind of change it up every year. I offer those on Etsy too, if you're interested. But basically, I pull 1 or 2 cards per month, and I just kind of, you know, can see my month at a glance. And then I pull some other, I might pull, if you're not, like, that's too much work, because that is a lot of cards for you, then just pulling maybe 1 or a couple just for, you know, give me a theme of 2023. And, you know, ending the year on celebration and pride and seeing your wins, and then beginning the year with hope for that new word that you chose is probably my best advice for New Year's. So I hope that serves you well. I hope you enjoy the reading that's coming up, and I thank you for watching. Welcome to our December 2023 reading. I'm sure you can hear my voice. I've been fighting off a little cold, and I don't know if I've already shared this theory, but I believe that we get physically sick when we've had some kind of emotional or spiritual leap. It's our body's way of catching up. It's just personal. The different decks I have are Inner Child Healing Tarot, the Seasons of the Witch Yule deck, Whispering Woods, Sacred Geometry, and this new one, it's called the Animal Apothecary, which is, you're going to see it, you're going to love it, it's so beautiful. So we're going to begin with Inner Child Tarot. I want to get some like guiding cards with the tarot. So, as you know, I shuffle, I say prayers, I tune in. And let's see, we have this one. This is the Three of Swords. This is Esmeralda from the Hunchback of Notre Dame. And as you can see right here, she has this kind of illuminated triangle that she's playing. She's obviously trapped, but she has a view, and there's a dove coming to bring her peace. So to me, this is signifying, you know, becoming unstuck in some way. We look at the messages and the energies for this month. It was a lot about going into the cave, which is why I put my book here, going within yourself and figuring things out. And so she is alone and illuminating all on her own with the help of the Holy Spirit, right? She's gone within and she's found that illumination. And we have the Guide of Wands. This is the Pied Piper. And you can see he's happily playing the music and leading all the children and even the animals out of the town. But in this deck, he's not a bad Pied Piper. He's got the butterfly, which represents transformation, coming out of the shell. So we have two cards so far that talk about transformation, illumination, spiritual awakening. So I really feel that the reason why we need to rest and go within the dark time of winter is to have these insights. And I feel like this is just kind of signifying that, right? Leading us there. And then we have the Seeker of Swords, who is the Scarecrow from The Wizard of Oz. And we all know the Scarecrow is seeking a brain, but he actually has a brain all along. I'm going to take a sip of tea. And in this one, the swords are going both ways and his arms are going both ways. It's very much like choose your own direction. And so, you know, December, you have this choice. You don't have to go within and rest. But if you do, it looks like you're going to be leading others by example, and you're going to have some self-illumination. So I think those are really good guiding cards. Okay, next I'm going to move on to Season of the Witch. I like these. I bought them last year, and I only use them around winter, but I like having cards that I only use a certain time because they're more special that way. Yule log, it says, insert me with a bleeding thought, a sacred creation birthed from thy. I am God, I am goddess, I am creation and creator. So the Yule log has become like a cake, but you know, traditionally it was lit on the winter solstice to help bring the sunshine back, right? The winter solstice is the darkest night of the year, and there were bonfires and candles and Yule logs and, you know, colors of orange and red, things that would, you know, bring back the sun. Our ancestors missed the sun at the height there, and we're trying to bring back the light. And that's exactly what we're being invited to do, right? Go into the darkness to find your light and bring it out. And so, yeah, I feel like the Yule log also speaks to sharing and togetherness and holiday festivities. And so just because we're going within doesn't mean we can't partake with our family and our loved ones. Here we are telling stories, right? So we have a cozy grandma and children by the hearth, and same idea. It is time to maybe to tell your story. Maybe you'll go within and something beautiful will be born. This book was mainly written in the winter. There are probably a few poems here and there that were written in the fall, but it was mainly composed completely in the winter. Because in the winter is a good time for us to tap into that creativity, to go within. You're not outside as much, so you can be by the fire, sharing your story with others, writing your story down. So definitely a good time to create. Look at that hearth, right? The hearth is the center of the home. Hestia was the goddess of the hearth, and she really had no other function than to be like the center of the home. And so think about your home at this time. You know, winter draws us inward. This is traditionally was the gathering place in homes, but many places don't have a fireplace. So You know, what is the center of your home? Do you have an altar? Are you caring for it? Do you have a sacred space? You know, where are you meeting? How can you freshen that up? How can you add some winter notes to it? Gatherings. So again, just because we're going in doesn't mean we're, you know, ghosting everybody. We're definitely encouraged to go in, but to tell stories, to share music and have fun, go on an adventure, celebrate Yule log, tell stories, sit by the hearth, right? This is a time of togetherness. And I know for me personally, I'm looking forward to Christmas more than normal. Halloween is my favorite holiday, but this year I'm feeling Christmas more. And I think it's because due to COVID and whatnot, we haven't really had a proper Christmas. Our town does this beautiful parade and festival of lights, and it was our first time ever seeing it because we moved here in 2020. And I just feel like I want to do all the Christmas things. Sorry, I need some more tea. We actually got us tickets to a Celtic Christmas performance. I'm very excited. One more, Silent Night. So yes, we are being encouraged to celebrate and have gatherings and tell stories and go on adventures. But don't forget, it's time to go within, to sit in silence, to meditate. You know, I don't know if you've ever tried just a silent meditation. It doesn't need to be like in a special place. You just sit by your hearth if you are lucky enough to have one, and look at the fire and take some deep breaths and just have it quiet. No phone. Like they said in the reading, in the energy report, you know, there's too many distractions. It's like no one's ever away from light. No one's going into silence. So we're being reminded again, we need to go into the silence. We need to, when the silence is there, the silence and the darkness meet, you can't help but have things come up. You can't help but learn things about yourself. So having that silence is so, so important. I'm just gonna pull just a few, just like maybe one or two from Sacred Geometry. This doesn't resonate with everybody. For people with math phobias, they might not like it. Okay. So we got Ka, which is energy, and we got the dodecahedron, which we have, you know, the multifaceted look at things. So the multiverse, right, in Marvel, but we really are in kind of a multiverse. So being asked to look at things differently, being asked to kind of roll the dice and change things up. You know, really thinking about how your life is multifaceted. You know, sometimes we'll do something like a small act, like put out a poetry book, write our story, share our story with someone, and we don't know how far that goes. You know, everything you put out there, it's infinite amount of energy, and that kind of speaks to this as well, right? If you are the center here, this is your legacy of light, which we've talked about on here. This is you, the whirling dervish, the soul, and it's just emanating everywhere. And so when you do this work, when you go in and have these silent nights and you have these spiritual journeys, it is not selfish. I've talked about this before. I'm going to talk about it again. It is not selfish, because when you heal, others heal. You're healing your bloodline. You're healing your children and their children. You're healing your ancestors. You're healing everyone you come in contact with, because you're no longer stressed out and anxious and saying things that you shouldn't say. It's like you're just a light here on earth, an earth angel. And you're not going to be like that all the time. But the more you can evolve, the better it is for the whole planet. Don't think of it as selfish to have these silent nights and to have this time to yourself. It is not. It is necessary for growth, okay? All right, I'm going to put those there. The Animal Apothecary, the art is so now. I feel like it's a very current deck, which is what I like about it. And I like the colors a whole lot. And I like the feel. Ooh, get out of your head. Interesting, right? So that I definitely feel goes with gathering with friends, getting out on a journey, taking a winter walk, a winter hike, a winter vacation, even if that's something that is available to you, to get out of your head, right? And this is like, do I want to point out, we have the hens, right? We have the chickens, which, you know, hang out together. They're much happier in a group, and a flock, I think is the right term. And they nest together, they cuddle together, they lay more eggs if they're happy in their nest and they're happy in their home. And it makes me think back to like, we're in this kind of incubation stage. When we go and have our silent night and we're in the darkness and we're sitting there quietly, that's incubating. We're getting out of our head into our heart, into our soul, and we're learning things when we do that. Wow, action leads to success. So according to the author of this deck, this, she said, is the best card of the deck. It's like the most lucky. And it's got the dragons. And action leads to success. So again, we're resting. There's this kind of double message here. It's like, you need to take time and rest, get out of your head, have silence, be in the darkness. But at the same time, don't do that all winter. So you got to gather with friends, you got to adventure, you got to take some action. So we're definitely being challenged to have that balance. I know that if I don't rest enough around the holidays, if I push it, I'm sick, which is why I'm sick at the time after Thanksgiving. Ooh, destiny path. This is the sign of alchemy, not Harry Potter's Deathly Hallows. And we have King Snake and Bee. Bee is a busy little bee, and King Snake can eat venomous snakes and be fine. It can transmute poison. So this card is all about transmutation, right? Going within, into the shadow, transmuting that energy, and coming out able to be more productive. Inner truth, yes, right? Inner truth. We got, I feel like these two, and the Esmeralda card buried back there. The owl isn't afraid of the darkness, sees clearly in the darkness, a silent flyer. The owl to me represents wisdom. I had a step grandmother, and I loved her. She was my real grandmother. She collected owls. I was associated with her. She said it's because she was a night owl, but she was very wise. And when we have these silent moments and go into the darkness, we have that inner truth. So what I'm kind of feeling from this is, up until the winter solstice, try to have those silent nights and go within as much as you can. Have that darkness, at least have the silent night if you can on the winter solstice. Then from there, take action, get on your journey, gather with friends, tell stories, come out of your shell. That's what I'm feeling. Inner conflict resolution. Okay, so again, like another snake too, which is interesting. So we're definitely having this, like, when we can go within and have all that rest, we'll be ready for all the holiday parties. We'll be ready to handle our relatives who aren't into spirituality, right? We'll be more well rested. So rest and then gather. I think that's what I'm getting. And then I'm going to pull a few from the Whispering Woods. I would like to create a deck like this, because I just like how simple it is. Just the keywords, a key phrase. Like, these are good if you don't know how to read cards, I think, and if you're kind of new to it all. The night. Look at that, silent night and the night. Find comfort in the night, where the world switches off and they start to burn bright. It's time to be that night owl a little bit. Dance. It's time to dance. And this means, like, you know, you could dance alone, whatever, but it's really important. I've learned personally from my own spiritual practice to have good music on for me. I don't listen to spiritual music all the time. You know, I like to move around and dance. It's whatever gets you feeling good. Dancing really uplifts the heart and the soul. So I like that we got dance. Now look at that, music was on the bottom. So I'm just gonna put that there. Pull a couple more of these. Idle hours. Take some time out to lie on the emerald grass. Look at that. Sit in your silent night. Be the night owl. Relax. Transform. Oh my gosh. Yes. Right? We're going to transform. We're going to transmute. We are going, I'm trying to find the other one that had the, I can't find it right now. But the one that was another transmutation, another snake card. Emerge with beauty and grace from your cocoon. Yes. So what I feel is that we are cocooning until winter solstice. If that's not possible, then on winter solstice, you're having a silent night. You're gonna have some reflection, some journaling, some time just to sit and stare and do nothing, really rest, and then come out of that cocoon and be ready to party. dance, music, friends, gather, live it up. I hope this serves you well. If you liked it, please like it, please subscribe, please share with a friend. You know, I love to share readings I find on YouTube with my friends, so please do that for me and have a wonderful holiday. I hope you're able to rest and rejoice.